Welcome to Red Earth Theatre's first foray into the world of online play performance. Thank you for joining us on this exciting venture. You are in at the opening. I also want to thank our season sponsor, Sovereign Laboratories, who thought they were sponsoring something else, but are sponsoring this as well. And to the many who have supported us and continue through the change of direction. My name is Kate Hawkes. I'm the producing artistic director of Red Earth Theatre, coming to you from my house. And I'm delighted to have this opportunity to continue to bring you theatre. I want to give a special shout out to Wendy Lipman at Tulakipaki, where we usually are on the third Thursday of the month, and to Maureen Nealon, who made a very generous donation directly to this project, and to all of those who gave on the recent Arizona Gives Day. We are paying a small fee to the actors and the technicians who've helped us, and to our fabulous graphic designer. All of these people have lost work due to the pandemic, and as members of the Red Earth family and of the artists in general, we are in a very small way honoring their work, their time, and their need. So please consider, if you could, making a donation at the Red Earth Theatre website. We have a little donation link there. This is the first in a series that we intend to offer each Thursday, and then we'll be posting the videos on the Red Earth Theatre YouTube channel, on which we also have some other material, and we'll be updating them weekly on the website. We are really excited to bring you our inaugural show. It is called Puzzles and Borderlines by Micki Shelton. We go back a long way. Kate Hawkes, the director, and Micki Shelton, we go back to the days when I first arrived here in Arizona, and I found a theatre community in Prescott. Micki had written a beautiful play, Fred and Mary, an unconventional romance, that I got to direct, and it played at the Elks Opera House. Ben Gorman acted in that play, and then Catherine Landetta, who's the other actress in this show, she was recommended to Micki by a fellow thespian in Prescott. And Catherine actually started out in Phoenix before she ended up in New York. We then brought on Jonathan Best, who has written show very specific music for this show very specifically. You'll hear a little bit of it today, but when you see the final edited version on YouTube, there'll be more of that music. Micki was deeply moved by obviously the events of COVID-19, and she was shocked by the racism that some have shown toward the Chinese. She turned to writing, as she always has. Much of her work comes from her feelings and knowledge about what's happening. This play also is informed by her love and awe of our beautiful planet and her connection to her spiritual practice. And they came together in this beautiful little two-hander. So we are delighted to be presenting the first public hearing of Puzzles and Borderlines by Micki Shelton. And we are grateful and impressed to have Ben Gorman reading from Minnesota, and Catherine Landetta in New York. Our online rehearsals have been a blast. And now I am going to try and disappear, and the actors will reappear, and let's see what we have here.
Peter, is it? So I really am.
Yes, dear. And you are Jane.
How is it possible to travel all the way to the moon and back, endure the perils of space travel, and have it be this tiny thing that brings me down?
Baffling, isn't it? So, welcome. Oh, it's quite all right here. I know it's been some time, but what was it like seeing it from that tether while you floated soundlessly and rather helplessly, I might add, in space?
It transformed me. Wouldn't it, anyone?
I suppose so.
It was this fascinating little pearl floating there all alone. Cobalt, iridescent, lonely, I guess. If you look closely at that famous painting by Vermeer, you'll see that the pearl is not attached to her ear at all. You have to ignore the whole rest of the painting to see it. Your eye is drawn into the darkness just off center. And there it is, alone. Earth is like that. isolated in the dark.
A single orb suspended in space.
I hadn't seen it that way before I traveled into space. When I was little, my parents gave me this puzzle, a map of the Earth, each colored piece a country. The US was orange, red was China, Saudi Arabia was purple, Niger, brown. I thought the lines our governments drew were real. I could organize the whole world. Those borders were so thoroughly imprinted on my mind that I imagined colors on the globe with my eyes closed.
Because it was a geopolitical map
Yes,
with imaginary lines, shifting all the time, I suppose.
yes, a topographical map would have shown natural features, mountain ranges and rivers, elevations and trenches. It would have had one great big piece for the Ring of Fire, one for the Nile Delta, another for the Amazon basin. What a different focus I'd have had. The colors are different looking from space. Real. Blue and green and white and a little bit of red splashed on like blood red paint. And when the night side of the globe faces you, there's this congregation of lights where the cities are. And you know there are people down there heading off to work before they've had breakfast, taking their children to daycare, coming home exhausted, barely able to make it to their door and climb up the stairs. And then there's dinner to cook and kids to read stories to and laundry to do. Why do we make things so hard? Why don't we just stand there in awe?
Ah, yes.
Awe of what I knew was down there. Crystal caves and wild flowing rivers, canyons and mountaintops, trees changing color in autumn, or just one place. That path I took to the pub that one evening in midsummer, the narrow trail hemmed with honeysuckle and blackberries, or just the ale, just that, held in my hand, gazed at, then drunk.
There's a theory going around that God loves things by becoming them.
Was that God? Ale in hand, sitting at the pub,
Who else?
laughing, flirting, a few coarse words.
So, here you are now, standing at the gate. What exactly brought you here? They don't tell me, you know.
It has to do with borders and the fact that they don't exist. They don't see them.
Who doesn't see them?
Viruses, because they don't actually exist.
Viruses?
No, borders. Viruses exist, all right. Now, I'm no scientist. My graduate degree was in mathematics, but we astronauts have to have some scientific understanding. Certainly that viruses and bacteria don't recognize borders. Neither does CO2, but that's another matter. The governments weren't ready. They bought into the foolish notion that viruses could be stopped at the border like immigrants and refugees.
What are they exactly? The science in my day was rather
Primitive, I expect. Viruses, ineffective agents made of a nucleic acid molecule wrapped in a protein coat, too small to be seen by even light microscopy. They can only multiply inside cells of a living host, like an animal or a human. They corrupt systems and destroy data. Little tiny things that get into your body and make you sick. If it's a new unknown virus, your immune system doesn't know how to fight it off.
viruses, immune system. They're so complicated.
Technology hasn't saved us. Understand, I loved living on the space station, planning a trip to Mars, but they say technology is the mark of civilization. Where's it gotten us? People are dying as fast as they did in 1918. If things don't change, they'll be dying as fast as they did during the Black Death.
I see.
People say civilization began when humans first used tools. Do you know how Margaret Mead defined the start of civilization?
I seem to recall something about bones.
Margaret said that the first sign of civilization was a femur, a thigh bone, that had been broken and then healed. In the animal kingdom, she explained, if a leg bone is broken, the animal dies. It becomes food for scavengers. It's the same lesson I learned from space. Civilization requires community, not tools. It begins when we care for one another. A healed femur is evidence that someone has taken time to stay with the one who fell. Someone has bound up the wound. Someone has carried that person to safety and tended the person through recovery, helping someone through difficulty. That's when civilization began.
And it has, of course, begun.
Yes. And many people were trying to help, trying to bind up the wound, so to speak. Still are. Searching for the correct antiviral. But in the meantime, since this is an unknown virus, the only thing they can really do is wait for the patient's immune system to get up to speed and just fight it off. Tell them to drink plenty of water, wear a mask, down that vitamin C, pray.
An inscrutable process at best.
Yeah, so how come that doesn't always work?
What?
Prayer.
Beats me. I'm just the doorkeeper.
I would have thought St. Peter would have been given a bigger job than that.
It's a pretty important door.
But why?
Why what?
Why doesn't prayer always work?
I could tell you, but it would feel like preaching.
I want you to preach. You're St. Peter. I'm in need of some answers. Why otherwise are you here?
To open the door.
Oh, well.
Look, even my master prayed, if this cup can be taken from me, let it be so.
And?
His prayer was answered. It was answered with a no. So your immune system, I presume, didn't get up to speed quickly enough?
Oh, no. There was nothing wrong with my immune system. Astronauts have to be extraordinarily healthy. Anyway, I never caught the virus.
But you said
Said what?
it had to do with borders and the virus?
It does. The first person to be infected with the virus lived in China. It spread from there, and so after a while, people started calling it the Chinese virus and vilifying us. I was simply walking down a city sidewalk when this man started calling me names. I was trying to get out of his way when he pushed me into the street. And while the street's generally empty because of the quarantine, this garbage truck couldn't get out of the way fast enough, and neither could I. It was so quick.
I see.
I don't qualify, do I? I have absolutely no history of going to church.
Qualify for what?
Getting past the gate.
Oh, don't be silly. Everybody gets in.
Then why are you here?
I told you, someone has to open the door. Just takes a lot longer for some folks.
What about that other place?
I thought you were a scientist.
As I said, just an astronaut.
Oh, just an astronaut.
I have some scientific understanding.
And some geophysical understanding, basic geology. Now, where do you think that other place would be?
Under the ground?
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know.
And this? In outer space, I suppose? Did you ever see it?
It is true, I do not see a physical door.
No pearly gates?
The only pearl I see is there, right there.
You see, that's all it takes.
What's all it takes?
Awe, astonishment at the astounding beauty.
That's it? Awe?
That, followed by a healthy response. But you see, that's always the result if it's true awe. The standing at the window watching the snowflakes blanket the city. Counting all the kinds of cacti or corals or conifers or chrysanthemums that God had the pleasure to create. The sky's array from the bottom of a canyon. If one truly experiences a moment of genuine reverence, how can one not respond in love, in borderless compassion for simply everything?
Did God cause this pandemic?
Oh, goodness, no. God doesn't cause these things. Earthquakes, hurricanes, cataclysms, pandemics.
A lot of people think God is in charge of everything.
Well, they are wrong. However, and it's a big however, God can use things. In this case, perhaps to build a global solidarity. It has been said that connection with God comes either from deep love or deep suffering. Maybe this pandemic will finally convince people that, as you said, there are no real borders. It doesn't hurt either for people to have time alone while they self-isolate. Did John of the Cross a lot of good. It's one's response that counts.
Well, finally, some much needed preaching. It's all very confusing. Anyway, there's not much I can do from here.
There's a whole lot you can do from here.
How?
I haven't a clue. But I will tell you this. Don't think for a second that you can't make a difference. Whether you are here or there, everything you do makes a difference. Do you know the story of the Israelites' escape from Egypt? The 10 plagues?
Will I get in if I do?
Maybe they were meant to be taken metaphorically. Maybe they actually happened. Some say they were all, in sequence, caused by the eruption of that volcano in Santorini.
How can you not know?
Let's say you do take it metaphorically. In Egypt, the first thing that happened was that the rivers turned to blood. What's happening to your rivers, your skies? Hurricanes, fires, tsunamis, droughts, floods, the melting of the ice sheets, volcanic eruptions, seas dying from pollution of many kinds.
That's 10.
Oh my, we're already up to 10. The fiery storms outside were not enough. The storms had to come into your bodies. Pestilence, like the death of the firstborn. Frogs and locusts weren't enough, neither was darkness. It isn't God who caused those, by the way, as I said. What did? The earth itself? These cataclysmic events have always existed, but they've been happening in such quick succession, you have to have noticed the difference. Use whatever name you like, but something is fighting back or bringing you a message. Think of it as a letter from mom. It's time for a complete about-face, a metanoia, a complete change of one's way of thinking.
Will things turn around? Will they down there listen?
I don't know. I've been watching for a long time. Lots of possibilities. Here, look through this lens. You can focus wherever you like.
And there. Oh, look.
Astonishing, isn't it? Every snowflake has an entirely different pattern. There are over 1,000 kinds of succulents.
Look, oh, there, right there. It's just beautiful over there.
There are all kinds of possibilities.
Fascinated, they continue to gaze through the lens at beautiful Earth. Thank you to Ben Gorman and to Catherine Landetta. And I want to thank you so very much, everybody, for being part of this. Thank you to Micki for the beautiful, beautiful play. Thank you to Jonathan for the beautiful music that is playing us out. And we will be back next week. We will be bringing you Soma and Louise Visit the Manor by Mary Hayborn. And the following week, a play by me. I want to thank you so much for your support. Support your artists in our community. Find ways you can give to them. These beautiful people here who their work is to bring us theater. Red Earth Theater is here for you. Stay in touch with us, visit us, and we will see you next week.